What's up, you guys? This is Tim Trevathan with Tim Trevathan Homes, and we're going to talk about housing market predictions for 2025 now that we're entering into the new year. Guys, I've done a lot of videos for 2024. It has been a wonderful year, and I've been able to reach a lot of awesome people from all around the country who have moved here. They found my videos and they decided to call me and reach out to me to relocate to Georgia. And guys, I'm excited for 2025. There are a few things though that I think you guys need to be aware of if you're considering to make a move to the metro Atlanta area here in Georgia. So we're going to dive into it with some of these predictions that have already been forecasted by several experts, and I'm going to give you my expert opinion based on the Atlanta market, so from a hyper-local perspective. So here we are, housing market predictions for 2025. What's next for buyers and sellers? Number one, home values will grow at a modest rate. After several years of skyrocketing values, 2024 brought us some much needed breathing room, and 2025 is expected to offer more of the same. So for sure, I could say that home values did skyrocket indeed for several years. I started in real estate in 2016. Every single year I have seen a seller's market with price growth growing every single year from anywhere from 3 to 5% on an annual basis back in 2016 to 2019 to all the way up to 25 to 30% in 2021. And then we started to see things to taper off around the summer of 2022 once interest rates spiked. Just like the rest of the country, it felt that same pressure for home prices to not rise as much because simply the affordability crisis that we've experienced. Since then, we've seen some places in the United States where now there are price declines, some that are very steep, the most being Austin, Texas, followed by other places like Phoenix, Arizona, Colorado, and a lot of coastal cities in Florida, and other places in Texas like Dallas. Now, as far as Atlanta goes, we haven't seen a decrease in prices that much, if any at all, in some areas, whereas other areas it's more prominent. And it boils down to location and school district is what I found out. For example, if you take the city of Snellville in Gwinnett County here on the east side of the county, we've seen home prices dip a bit from anywhere between 10 to 30,000. But if you go to other places like Suwanee, Johns Creek, and Alpharetta, prices have continued to go up, especially in those good school districts, which is practically in all of those cities. So we're seeing the families who have the money, that are motivated, that need to buy, they have a reason to buy. Those are the ones that are moving to the places that are in high demand, that are keeping the prices up, if not higher. And you might be wondering, what are the metro home values going to look like in 2025? Well, you can see here, these are the top 10 metros where home values are expected to increase the most. And you can see Hartford, Connecticut at the top of 4.2%. Going down the list, Providence, Rhode Island, Miami, Florida, Charlotte, North Carolina, and so on and so forth. So it looks like Atlanta's not on this list, which means some people are worried, well, what about resale value, Tim? Is my home going to be worth more in several years from now if I was to purchase in 2025 and decide to sell in the future? Well, maybe not as much as some of these cities, but take a look at this list. The top 10 metros where home values are expected to decline or grow the slowest in 2025. There at the top is New Orleans, Louisiana, San Francisco, California, Austin, Texas, Sacramento, California, Minneapolis, Minnesota, and so on and so forth. So you can see that Atlanta, Georgia is not on either of these lists. So it's not going to be at the top as far as home values increasing, or at the bottom where home values are decreasing or at a slower amount. So basically you can see Atlanta, Georgia is right there in the middle. A lot of factors play into this. What I've told people in previous videos, one of the biggest factors is that, believe it or not, Atlanta, Georgia is ranked in the top 3, if not top 1 or top 2 for the most investor-owned properties, meaning that it takes up a large share of the ownership when it comes to institutional investors. I think the percentage is something like 35%. So it's huge. So about a third of all the homes in Atlanta, Georgia are owned by institutional investors, those that own 1,000 or more properties. So they are in turn renting them out. Those are the ones that are typically not selling the properties because they want to continue to rent them out and receive that rental income. And it's artificially keeping the inventory low, which is still why we see demand over supply in Atlanta. Now, I know things are changing a bit. So 2025, I don't think we're going to see that much growth, if any, It might be 1 or 2% is my prediction. And again, that's talking about overall. There are some places, again, pockets where in the suburbs, north suburbs in particular, where we could see still some price increases, especially from the seasonal trends of spring and summer. Number 2, the next prediction is mortgage rates expected to ease but remain volatile. Yes, I believe so. Volatile being the main word, because I bought another home back in June of 2024, and I ended up locking it at 6.875% interest rate. Literally 2 months later, I had a client of mine who bought his first home, a ranch style home in Lawrenceville in Gwinnett County, and he got a 5.3% interest rate. That's a 1.5% difference from me just 2 months before. So that was crazy. And then since the time he bought, interest rates went back up to 7, which are higher than when I bought back in June. So yes, volatility is definitely the key word. And as far as 3% interest rates that we were used to for so many years, I don't think we're gonna see that coming back anytime soon, or if ever. But I think the main thing is that you're gonna wanna buy a house where you know that you can live in for more than 7 years. This is what I've been telling people. If you wanna buy a home, expect to live there for 7+ years. If you wanna see equity built in the home through price appreciation, as well as seeing your mortgage balance decrease as you're paying off your mortgage every month. And here's an example of average mortgage rates for prime borrowers. You can see there what we were accustomed to for so many years back in 2021 at 3.11% for the interest rate, then spiking around April of 2022, and then topping off at the end of 2023 at 7.78%, and now we're hovering around 6.9 to 7%. So one of my predictions that I would say for local trends here in Atlanta, one of them being is that there are buyers that I have that are looking to buy and they're pulling the trigger. They're deciding, Tim, we've waited too long. We waited long enough to try to see if rates would come down, and they haven't. Some that I've been in touch with since 2022, and the rates have not come down. And they're like, Tim, we need to buy a home. We have several reasons. We need a bigger space for our family. And also I want to tap into home ownership to build for my future. Many different reasons like that. So they're like, Tim, we're coming off the fence in 2025. This is the year that we're buying. Prediction number 3, the Southwest joins the list of regions tipping in buyers' favor. So Southwest being places like New Mexico and Arizona, which I did mention, Phoenix, Arizona is becoming a buyer's market. Again, here in the Southeast, it's very different, specifically here in Atlanta, where I don't think we're gonna see much of a buyer's market, if at all. And traditionally speaking, a buyer's market officially defines as having 6 months of inventory. Right now, we have about 3.5, maybe 4 months of inventory supply available. So we're not even in that buyer market territory. And anyway, 6 months is really considered a balanced market. So it would have to be even higher than that. Prediction 4, deals for renters will be less common. Now these predictions are nationally speaking, so this may be different here in the Atlanta market. I'll give you a firsthand experience with one of my rental properties that I have in Lawrenceville, Georgia. And this one was rented out for $1,950. It's a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom home, 2-car garage, single family with a fenced in backyard, good for pets. And I had it rented out at, again, $1,950, and this was back in 2021, November. And then following November 2023, they ended up leasing for 2 years. That rental rate of $1,950 jumped up to $2,300. And then just as I'm doing this video, what perfect timing, because I could definitely use this as a firsthand example, is that we are now in negotiation to renew the lease for this second tenant that I now got moved in at $2,300, and he's now got it for $2,200. So it's going down a little bit, believe it or not, but not by much. So while this headline is saying that it might be less common to find a good deal for renters here in Atlanta, you might find some, but here's one of the reasons why. I think a lot of the COVID dispersion of people moving from out of state, say New York or West Coast to Atlanta, that has ended basically. And so we're not seeing as much demand from outside of the state. And besides those that do, they're now the ones that are buying if they are moving here. So as far as renters locally though, there's so many options in terms of apartments. I'm seeing apartment complexes being built like overnight, it seems like, and they're all over the place here in Duluth, Lawrenceville, Snellville, Loganville, Beaufort, Suwanee. So there's just so much more to pick from now that they're willing to pay a little bit less rent, even though the apartment space is a little bit less than say a single family rental home. But the good news is if you're in a good school district, like in mine, I'm still seeing the demand take place within my own rental property. So it all depends on location and school district, even for rentals. Speaking of which, it is the Peachtree Ridge High School District, if you're wanting to know, and that is probably the best school district for any rental property located in Lawrenceville. It's also near Interstate 85, so there's a lot of great things going for it. Prediction 5, pet friendly will be a non-negotiable for property managers. So, kind of tying into prediction 4, say with my rental property, believe it or not, the first renter was a married couple with no kids and no pets. Now, the second tenant that I've got, they are a married couple with a recently newborn baby, and basically they don't have any pets either, but it's still something that a lot of people are going to be looking for. Because here's the thing, when I had it listed for rent, before I ended up choosing them as my long-term tenant and we signed the lease agreement, prior to that I had 20 applications. This was for the time that I was renting it out in November 2021, and then I had about 10 applications in November 2023. And the thing is, in both cases, I had about a good half of them that had pets. And so a fenced-in backyard will increase your demand for rental property status as far as getting that curb appeal of people wanting to come in and rent your place out, as well as increase the renter pool for those that have pets that need that space, especially private space where they don't want to disturb their neighbors, nor have their neighbors get angry back at them if they have a dog that barks, for example. Last but not least, prediction 6, Americans will take it down a notch with smaller spaces. Now, here's the one thing I will say. Here in Georgia, with the prices of homes going up, one of the stats that came about earlier this year in an article that I read was saying that Atlanta is actually one of the most unaffordable places in terms of wage growth to rental amount or price of the home disparity. So in other words, based on the amount of money you're making, the home price is very different from the amount of money that people are making, and that's what's hurting the ability of people to be able to buy a home and own it. But one way in which people are deciding we want to be homeowners, no matter what the costs are, they're deciding to concede in 2 ways. One of them is this prediction, which has already been going on in Metro Atlanta, and that is deciding we're gonna buy a home with less space. So instead of that 5-bedroom, 3,000 square foot home, we're gonna get a 2,200 square foot 4-bedroom home, which still meets our needs. It may not be as comfortable, it may be a little bit more cozy, but it's still better than nothing. And then the second thing that I noticed as far as a trend is that people are starting to branch out and look in other cities that initially in their home search phase, they were not considering. So for example, I have a client that wanted to buy in Suwanee, and I told him, hey, if you're gonna be looking for a newer home that is built in 2015 or higher, and regardless of the square footage, because they're all gonna be probably 3-bedroom or 4-bedroom anyway, those are selling for upwards of $650,000 to $700,000 starting price. Again, this is with newer homes, 2015 and newer. So with that said, they started to branch out and look a little bit further east. So they started looking in Lawrenceville, Snellville, Loganville. Ultimately, they settled for a house in Loganville. And what's great is that over there, they bought a new construction home for $450,000. This is a 2,300 square foot, 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom home. So still got the space that they were looking for had they bought in Suwanee, but for practically $250,000 less. So yes, ideally they would have lived in Suwanee and get to experience all the different amenities, the parks and recreation, the shopping and dining and restaurant options that they could have had, and even the school district, but they still ended up choosing one in which they were happy with, because there is a small section there close to Loganville called Grayson, the other city, neighboring city, where they are zoned for Grayson High School, and it is still a good school district, but the prices are not skyrocketing there as much as places like Suwanee. So he was very happy, family was happy, they got themselves a new home and at a price that they really liked. And since it was a new build, they got some nice incentives from the builder. So those are the 6 predictions that are tied to the local Atlanta real estate market. And I'm gonna come out with another video soon with some more predictions, with some more information from firsthand experience, so that can help you, whether it means buying or selling a home in 2025 here in Georgia. By the way, one thing to look forward to in 2025 is I think we're gonna see more listings. There are a lot of people. I have two different kind of categories of people. One is the buyer who has been waiting for rates to come down. They realize that they aren't, so they're getting off the fence and they're buying anyway. And the second category is the people that already own a home and they have families that are growing and they need to upsize, so they are deciding to sell their home and then buy a bigger home. I have a lot of those going on. And because of that, we're gonna see increased buyer activity simultaneous with more inventory on the market. So this should make for an interesting 2025. We were at an all-time low in sales for homes in 2024. I think it's only up from here. Yes, interest rates are still gonna be high. Yes, home prices are still gonna be high, but with the right tools, looking in the right area for the right price, and what fits your needs for you, if you're a young professional or a family, I think you can find the right home and call Atlanta, Georgia, your home. Hope to hear from you, and in the next video, you're gonna see more predictions. Take care, and until then, peace out.